Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the ADHDads. I'm your host, CJ.
And I'm JJ.
And I'm JJ. You failed at that, but that's okay, buddy, because today I want to talk about failing with finesse. How do we do it? I don't know why I elongated the S on there like I was he who shall not be named for you Harry Potter fans out there. But we're big Harry Potter fans in my household, man. My wife, when she was teaching, her classroom was Harry Potter themed. So she was the cool teacher on campus. All the kids loved going into her classroom because she had little floating keys everywhere with wings and all sorts of little Harry Potter Easter eggs. So that was always cool.
Yeah, and I hear you guys are going to be doing a knockoff, can't directly call it Harry Potter, but you're going to do a wizard adventure here coming up.
Yes, for legal reasons, we can't say Harry Potter. It's a wizard adventure. But yeah, in November, man, hopefully when you guys come out here too, maybe we can finagle at the same time. But there's like a little, it's like a murder mystery park event. So you bring your family out, you guys dress up as wizards, and then you get clues, and it's a scavenger hunt, and you spend the day, using your wands and trying to solve mysteries. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Get the whole family in on that, communicating together in the best way to succeed, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. That always seems to go fun when 5 people have 5 different opinions and talk over each other. So But yeah, man, that's kind of what I want to talk about. We've been talking on these episodes about the, crucibles that I've been going through right now with the hurricane damage and the, laid off from work and the kids changing schools and the COVID and the lupus and the Kawasaki, the punches just keep rolling, man. And, as much as I would like to say I've got it all figured out and it's all perfection here, I've really been feeling my blood boil over the last couple of weeks here with the disarray of our house, man. It's just getting to me, Maybe it's imparted from my stepmom and her OCD tendencies growing up that I need like clean space, and I'm just not able to get it right now. So we talk about all the time, JJ, about like how to set ourselves up for, for positivity in our life and for things to not go wrong, or for when they do, we have these outlets or we have these methods or these tools, or we've set ourselves up with these morning routines or these fitness routines or meditation routines, or we've had the house cleaned or put the things aside so we don't get frustrated the next day. But what do we do when, you're not able to do those things, when you're out of town, when the routine and structure is shaken and you aren't able to set those things up, and you maybe have a blow up or an argument or yell at your kids? It's not funny, JJ. This is real life stuff. I'm trying to be vulnerable about the argument I had with my wife here, and you're laughing at me.
Well, let me just kind of go back to when you started talking just now, and you said right now we're going through this, and I'm like, so in terms of right now, you mentioned Kawasaki, which must have been about a year ago. So right now is it's like a good percentage of your overall lifespan.
I feel like it's all right now because it's just been like the last 12 months that have just rolled one thing into another. So I feel like I haven't gotten a break from it to be like, oh, then it's just all right now, JJ.
Yeah, well, when you watch a boxing match, not that I'm one to really watch boxing, but I have seen a couple of matches in my time where, the commentary, the running commentary, gets really exciting toward the end especially. But there's a whole bunch of blows that are taking place through the process of this fight. And usually it's the knockout punch that we see that, gets everybody really kind of worked up. But the truth is along the way, there's a lot of things building up to that end point. And you guys have been experiencing a lot of hits. And I have yet to say, I've not seen you go down without, constantly trying to bob and weave and adjust and work your magic, through this whole ring of series of blows your family goes through. So I just want to first acknowledge that, like, this is part of the conversation we're having today, is that the communication can completely break down and crumble if you don't have the correct type of tools, or at least the coping and regulation skills that you need to have to manage. So yeah, I'd like to circle around to all that by the end of this conversation, which I know we will.
Yeah, man, it's I was feeling all on my high horse the last few episodes that we did. I just wrote this whole thing about how to establish rules for an argument. And in the heat of an argument with my wife and I dropped the ball on some of those things, man. I just totally contradicted myself, and I failed at it, and used a lot of you statements and always, and you always do this and you never do this, and it got me backed into a corner where the active listening seemed to go out the window on both of our parts, and we were just kind of at a stalemate. We couldn't enforce some of the boundaries that we had set in ahead of time for ourselves, such as when we notice that things are maybe getting to an elevated point, we can walk away and recollect our thoughts, maybe even write them down before we go back at it. Instead of leading with emotions, we're trying to lead with intellect. And we didn't have a room to go into, JJ. The whole bottom floor of my house doesn't have a floor right now, and all the furniture's covered, So it would get to a point where it was like, well, I'm going to go take a minute. And then you'd walk out of the bedroom door and it's like, well, shoot, where do I go, man? There's nowhere to sit, So you'd circle around the house and walk on the sticky floor. There's no pacing going on. There's no sitting going on. You're just like standing in a corner where it's not as sticky, and those timeout times kind of got cut short. We would go back in there and maybe the emotions hadn't calmed down and we just weren't able to figure it out in that night, and we really had to press pause and go to bed with some resentment and wake up the next day and try to press resume on the conversation, which did work. We did have time to calm down and be present more in a moment where we could ask some better questions. But that's what I kind of want to get into today, man, is, this isn't perfect. And though I get up on my soapbox every week here in front of my colored bricks, and talk about this stuff, this isn't, the end goal isn't perfection, and we're never going to get to it, and we stumble along the way. And even me, 3.5 years into learning these things, knowing these things, practicing these things, failing at these things and try to recover from these things, I still fail from them and need to recover, and I kind of wanted to talk to you and hopefully our listeners will get some gold out of today's conversation where we can talk about what do we do when we fail. And though maybe you don't have a partner, JJ, to talk to specific of what I'm talking about, I think this really translates well to our kiddos as well, because we're not always on point with our conversation and our tonality with our kiddos too. So, I want to talk about like what accountability looks like after the fact. How can we revisit conversations that seemed a little temperamental? Because I'll be honest, JJ, like this conversation, we were having a great conversation before it led up to this, and we were talking about religion and theology, and I was trying to kind of express my journey through my beliefs and how I got to where I am and why I believe the way that I do and how I look at it and interpret, the Bible and other religions and all of this information and opinions coming at us from different churches and people. And I could see being triggered by that in whatever capacity. In a sense that she was getting defensive of me trying to explain my opinion, and I wasn't trying to get her to believe what I believe or to tell her that she was wrong, but I could see that she was getting triggered in a way that was kind of interrupting me and wasn't letting me finish. And I was getting really frustrated with that,
Mm.
because I wanted to be heard and I wanted to express this. And, we ended up getting caught up or hooked up on a different thing that had nothing to do with religion or theology. I say that, sometimes I use humor as a way to try to navigate my own frustration and my aggression. And, that's a double-edged sword, brother, because sometimes it can land and you make everybody smile and laugh and forget about the thing that they were crying. And sometimes it can go the other way, and you can make things worse, and people look at you like you're not taking them seriously. You're not listening to them. You don't
Right.
value their opinions. So that's the direction it went with my humor comment in my own self-defense, and then we started arguing about that humor and that
Yeah.
comment that I made, and trying to defuse, which was an innocent attempt on my part. I had good intentions, but it was not received that way, And
Yeah.
then we kind of argued about, well, I was trying to do this. Well, I was trying to do this. Well, I was trying to say this, but you didn't let me say that. But I couldn't say this because, and then it just became a tit for tat thing, which is so easy to fall into, brother.
Right. Right.
So, and this is something that was near and dear to my heart that I wanted to express to my partner, and where I'm at, on my journey spiritually, and where my mind is on most days, and how I view these things. And it just didn't go well. And we never got to
Mm.
finish that conversation that night. And I had a lot of feelings that night of, old Colton wanted to rear up and take charge and I didn't feel heard, and she never understands me, and she always cuts me off. And I did do bits of that, which got me into trouble. But I tried to backtrack and do it in some methods and techniques, but my wife was able to call bullshit, man. She's reading over these articles I'm writing about how to establish rules, and man, she was like, just an authoritarian. Well, you wrote this, and I just read this, but you didn't do this. She was just picking out every like little flaw and mistake that I did along this process. So I want to talk about how do we diffuse? How do we not get self-defensive? How do we pivot? And how do we apologize? Even when maybe we don't think that we're right, or how do we offer empathy in that moment when we're so caught up in our own ego or self-defense that we can't even maybe see that at the time. But maybe that's the thing that's needed to diffuse it in a way that we can both be heard and present. I just
Mm.
rambled. You've been over here laughing and at my pain and misery and failings, and you've got a smug look on your face, JJ. I want to hear your opinion.
Well, first off, I got to say, how many hours do we have on each episode to talk about these things? Because I think we're going to need a few to get through all of this. But no, I hear you, and I got to say, first off, there are certain topics that are just really easy to talk about. Religion. Oh yeah, nobody ever argues. So you guys are brand new to that. This is a new uncharted territory. No, that's one of those hot button topics that definitely brings about emotions from every direction that you didn't see coming within yourself, and you're arguing with yourself half the time, and then bringing that to somebody else. You're in a vulnerable state, and I bet they, in that same type of topic, are feeling the vulnerability within as well. So there's already two people coming at this situation with a lot of personal experience with it. Whether you have belief or you don't have belief, it typically brings about a lot of memories, a lot of trauma, all that stuff. I'll give you just a quick example of my journey. And I don't think I can offend anybody with this as much as I can hopefully bring people on board with the idea of why it's so complicated. I grew up in a church, Lutheran church specifically, up in Minnesota. I think you're just destined to be Lutheran if you're in Minnesota, or Catholic maybe. Um, but for all my years leading up to graduation from high school, I was told two things. I was told, this is what's the truth. This is what we're supposed to believe. This is 100% truth. There's no wiggle room. And then I was also told you need to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Well, how am I supposed to have a personal relationship if I'm just supposed to say this is all the truth? I'm just supposed to say truth, yep, truth, that. That doesn't sound like there's a lot of question and answer, right? So when I see an opportunity to talk with somebody about religious beliefs, I've got to be, you know, curious and open-minded, because what they were told probably for so many years was also very much like closed, type of system where I'm not allowed to, question it. I'm just literally, this is the ultimate truth and I must follow it in order to achieve whatever it is this, belief is telling me I have to achieve, which is of course, eternal life and perfection past this point. So you can see how a conversation about that topic would make anybody feel a little bit at a state of unease, because, you know, I'm supposed to explore this personally, but I'm also supposed to believe exactly what somebody else has already told me. That's a scary place to be. So when you talk to somebody you love dearly about something like that from your entire history till today, they're already bringing so much, from their subconscious to their conscious, level in response to you, in their experience. And if it doesn't align perfectly, that's going to probably tap into something, within their memories or traumas that's just going to make them feel that state of unease. So I imagine when you two entered this conversation about these topics, you're coming with, your vulnerabilities, your insecurities about belief, and just your traumas. And so therefore, you're not necessarily telling somebody else, how you are struggling with it. You're also exposing their own struggles with it in that process unintentionally. But now you see where, the everything kind of starts to build quickly. So that's a tough thing. And then, of course, when we talk about the resolution of that particular conversation, we're now entering into the next phase of, well, shoot, we have other conflicts that we're actually trying to focus on in this moment, but we're already escalated. So now I'm escalated towards you, not intentionally, but unintentionally, because we're talking about two things that we both are very sensitive to. Does that make sense? I know I kind of walked around your conflict resolution, approach to this topic, but I was just really curious to think,
No, no,
you
I
know,
I think you said it right on the nose, brother, because I think that's exactly what happened to me in exploring these vulnerabilities. I had a humbling moment too. We always talk about curiosity here and asking questions, and something that I always try to do in my communication now is try to turn all opinions into questions. So instead of me telling my wife, well, you should do this, I try to pose it in, well, what do you think the next step is, or how should we proceed, or even asking
mm,
permission of, well, do you want my opinion right now, or do you just want to vent, and
yeah,
where do you think that you went wrong, or tell me what was going on for you in those moments, instead of, like we talked about, why did you do that, I try to pose these in a way that defuses self-defense. But I had a
yeah,
humbling moment of this that doesn't always work, you know. And
hmm,
throughout this conversation, I was trying to practice this, of well, let me put my opinions into the form of questions to see where she's coming from here or where she's coming from here. But I noticed that maybe it was the way that I was producing the questions or organizing the questions or wording the questions that it seemed to put her on defense, that even the questions
hmm,
could still have that effect, so I need to uncover what the next layer is here, JJ, during these processes, because though
yeah,
the curiosity and questions have gotten me so far with this, I can now see that there can still be a little bit of a duality, double-edged sword here, where it still needs extra attention. You can't just throw it into a question and it's good. We really need to structure the question in a good way,
yeah,
that isn't, well, why are you doing this? Well, what was going through your mind to make that decision? Like, what's wrong with you? Those are questions, but they also have a lot of power to them too, and a lot of judgment and resentment. So that was a humbling experience for me to figure out what those questions are and how they need to be asked, and not just ask them.
yeah. I think you uncovered something here that we talk about pretty frequently, is that you were kind of asking about what are your boundaries around a topic, but instead maybe first asking about talking about the topic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I don't know because it didn't really. Again, that wasn't the conflict of our conflict. You know, that wasn't the topic of it. Ultimately, what it really led down to, I think, was the breakdown of the ego, or you
Mm,
know, the protecting of the ego. Like I was trying to get these ways out and these different methods and these different strategies, and it wasn't working. So then I got worked up and I dropped the
mm,
ball. Honestly, like it wasn't about the religion or the talk. It was more about how I was trying to bring her back, or to get her to see that, you know, hey, I'm trying to express opinion and you keep interrupting me. And but I was just getting to a point internally where I was like, dang, she did it again. Ooh, you know, I was checking boxes in my head. Well, there, oh, she just did
mm.
it again. She just did it again. Well, now I got to derail this conversation that we're having about theology to make a point to say, well, look, you interrupted me here, here, here. You did this here, you did this here, and it made me feel this way. And now we're arguing about this, you know. And it's hard sometimes in the moment to let the ego go and to just be curious when we feel attacked or when we feel not heard. You know, how do we hold that space still when we're feeling that way, you know? And that's still a little difficult for me to figure out. I think I'm still practicing that and exercising that, because I found a lot of success, like we talked about in the beginning stages, the morning prep, what I'm doing to set myself up, and the routines and all of these things. um, but you know, I think the hardest part about this is in the moment. You know,
Right.
I've said on this podcast, I think 90% of it is what we do before and after, and only 10% is, you know, in the moment, how we're controlling our stuff, and how we're able to, because it feels so maybe out of reach when emotions bubble up.
Yeah.
So how do you maybe do it? Do you recognize these signs in the moment? Is it, where's your success at? Are you in agreement with the 90-10 ratio here? Um, you know, or what are methods that work for you when you get worked up with Cohen or with
Mhm.
co-parent?
When I experience a little bit of unease and impatience, it's usually in the moment where I stop trying to understand his situation, where he's coming from.
Mm,
Case in point with that, just the other day, a good example is he has a friend that he hangs out with regularly, and the two of them sometimes, they start bouncing off each other, and they get louder and they get more silly, and they start kind of repeating the same things. And I'm not in a big place here. So, like when you have limited space, you have limited options to kind of step away and have a moment of, gathering yourself. So I saw these two kids just, having a ton of fun with each other, but it was also to the point where the noise was just too much. And the kids were, how kids can say the same joke like 50 times in a row and still chuckle so hard at that same joke. Well, a parent starts to hear the nail getting, hit into the wall until it's like bang, 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 really loud. That's essentially what I was experiencing. And I told the boys, guys, I need you to quiet down. And they quieted down for a little bit. And then, of course, it very quickly went back to being overwhelming noise. And what I said to myself is, I'm not okay with this. I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. They're making me feel uncomfortable. I was giving up my own, ability to handle an actually relatively easy situation, and instead charging somebody else with, you know, the crime essentially that I had to now, try and solve and clean up. And I wasn't in the state of mind to do it. I was unfortunately completely out of sorts and out of patience at that moment. And so therefore I was no longer thinking of, the situation that the kids were just simply trying to enjoy each other and create a bonding moment, but instead I was seeing it as, I'm uncomfortable and I have no control here, and so therefore I need to bring the volume up even louder to gain control. So I told the kids, essentially, quiet down, that's enough. And then when it comes to, looking back at that situation, I told you, just now what I should have told myself in the situation. First off, are they purposefully attempting to try to make my life worse right now? Are they trying to make my life miserable right now? That's a question I can ask myself. I don't even need to ask them questions at this point. I just need to ask myself the questions. Um, are they making this purposely difficult for me? Most of the time, they're not. Sometimes when the two of them are together, they start talking back to dad because you know, they're trying to get a rise out of the situation. So there is that. But most of the time, they are just simply trying to connect. And kids are loud and energetic. And, kiddos with ADHD also have a certain level of, inability to kind of just at least regulate their, the control of their bodies and their voices and stuff. And that's not something that I need to hinder. I need to point it out as a strength first. So then my kiddo can help himself as well in the situation. The more you praise those moments of good quality interaction, the more that they are aware of that in the moment too. And then they can really process that for themselves, and they gain something emotionally from that. So I think the problem is I called out just one component of what was taking place there. And so I was missing the mark. And same thing with your partner. When you have an argument going, chances are they're on this track, you're on this track. You're actually talking about two different things, and that's why you're struggling, because you don't see me. You don't see me. So we're now fighting against the other person, but we're not actually fighting about the same thing. So we're stopping our point of questions and curiosity, and instead are just completely in, like you said, our ego. We feel slighted, but we don't actually have a rational thought, or at least a rational statement to give to them as to why we are slighted by them, because we have lost that control of ourselves. So I think the big thing is, like, when it comes to feeling those trigger points, usually when you act out of escalation in those trigger points, it's an indication that you've lost the ability to regulate and cope properly. And again, I'll just go back to when I've already gotten to that point, and not in terms of the prep. Usually with the kids, it's post. Is I got to ask myself the questions like, what is it that the kids were doing? What did I recognize? What did I miss? And how do I point those things out in the moment when they come again? Because they will come again. Just like the kids love that same joke 50 times over, they love doing the same type of play over and over again, because it's good. It's part of their process of building friendship and bonding and stuff, and motor skills and all that junk, all the good stuff. So if I can reframe the situation, usually I'd prefer to not do it in post, but let's just be honest, we're human beings here. If I can reframe that and start asking myself questions, then I can, at least, even if I'm off base with those, I can in the moment later try and point out to those boys, hey guys, I notice you two are doing this. That's a really good thing between you two. What are you learning? What did you notice about this? Now I'm encouraging a lot of growth and opportunity for success in this moment, rather than suggesting it's in some way a problem.
Yeah, brother, I think you said it there, in that, we fail at this and we're going to. But I think that what a lot of people miss is that there is a really beautiful opportunity post, like you're saying, to circle back to whatever argument or crisis that happened and have accountability again, and to celebrate rather than diminish or tear down. And I think a lot of people, a lot of couples especially, really miss that too. They stop a fight because it gets too heated, and then when they circle back to it, they just pick right back up where they left off, rather than having accountability or exploring some of the good things that happened during that conversation. We do it with our kiddos, and we talk about, the opposite of that RSD, where we're giving them that euphoria of sensitivity and praise. Why can't we do that with our partners as well? Pick out the moment during I really appreciate what you said here about this. Though I don't agree with this, you don't have to agree with everything, but there's something there that you can find. I really, even if it's just, I appreciate you giving me the space to walk away and collect my thoughts. I think that we do need to get better about, in that second conversation post argument, what kind of praise can we bring to this, and accountability. And that's something that I always try to go into in that post conversation is, accountability. I'm sorry for this. And I really appreciate A, B, or C, and then we can kind of start from a place that's fresh and not like you said, where we're all sensitive to the animosity that's going on.
Yeah. Let's let's I want to kind of really unpack that too, and talk about just like the benefit of showing gratitude. It's gratitude is a push against resentment, right? Um, Resentment is a dangerous thing in any relationship, because that's essentially pointing the finger and suggesting that this person is a failure, or this person is somebody that I can't work with. This person doesn't I don't appreciate or respect their values. I mean, a lot of it, resentment is harsh, because it's essentially not letting go and not being able to accept something about somebody else. So it's a dangerous thing. And when you go into this with a moment of gratitude, or an opportunity to show gratitude and understanding, you're allowing yourself the opportunity to really open up and listen to somebody else. And I think that is something that far too often couples, like you said, they get in the habit of staying in their corner and wanting to fight their position. And when we talk about like stuff like boundaries, and something as important as boundaries in a couple's relationship is, what is a boundary? Well, again, it's something that you express for yourself that you will do in a situation, not what the other person will do if you feel triggered. And the big value about that, let's say we have the opportunity to have a conversation before we have the possible argument. If we understand somebody else's boundaries because they stated such, we're showing two things. The person who's stating their boundary is being vulnerable and saying, "Hey, maybe I have a sensitivity to this," and the person who is trying to hear that and listen to it is showing respect and understanding and care for that person. So this one person expressing what their boundary might be is letting you in, is trusting you with their perhaps deep sensitivities. And then when you hear that and you try to be mindful of that, you are showing care and compassion in return. So a stated boundary, even though there are hot button issues that we do talk about, when we understand that person's boundaries, hopefully when we know that conversation about that hot button topic comes up, we don't see it as, oh crap, I need to be on my defense here, I'm going to be challenged, but rather, I'm going into this to be understood and to understand.
Yeah, a lot of us really get defensive when we hear those boundaries, right? It's not somebody being vulnerable and letting us know what affects them emotionally or psychologically. We take it as, well, you don't like this behavior that I'm doing, so you're attacking me, and we get defensive of that. And we don't want to take responsibility for things that we get defensive of. We just want to ignore it and turn away, and I think that a lot of these post conversations are missed in the accountability, because a lot of, dare I say, men in particular seem to really get self-defensive after the fact. I wasn't heard. I wasn't understood. I didn't get to say what I felt, and she got upset when I said it. So I'm just not going to have that conversation again, and I feel that too. Well, never talking about religion again, until I can pull back and say that argument actually had nothing to do with religion. It was this derailment of these other things, that we didn't respect in boundaries with each other and the way that we communicated. But a lot of us are too scared to maybe go that deep level. We just say, well, the hurt, that feels the most obvious. It's right there in the forefront. I feel defensive. I feel hurt. So I'm just going to go with that emotion and try to move on from it, rather than uncovering, why do I feel hurt? What's underneath that? And why did I feel hurt when this person just expressed a vulnerability? Not an attack on who I am or what I'm doing, but just they tried to let me know who they are and I got defensive,
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Let's say that somebody says a boundary, and let's say it's a boundary specifically for your relationship. Like a parent, a child to a parent. You know, Dad, if you start talking about this topic, I'm going to have to exit the conversation. So that's probably comes with a history of failed communication efforts between the two people, right? And Dad could take that as, yeah, they just think I'm no good, and they just think I just want to fight them or something. You could take that path. You could take that path in response, or you could say, oh man, whatever's going on within them, it must be really hard, and that's why it's tough for them to talk about that with me, because we haven't always had a good exchange, and I haven't really fully understood them in that moment. I could take it that route, and then I have an opportunity to really find a way to get closer with this person. So then we say, oh man, I'm actually I'm letting go of all this stuff that I'm telling myself, and I'm allowing somebody to tell something to me about themselves. It might be a commentary on our relationship, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It could be a very enlightening thing, like you were saying just now. So I just wanted to applaud that effort, and by rewording it for the person who is feeling that charge, try and go through those steps of that curiosity and that compassion piece, rather than saying, all right, well, I got to defend myself again because I am the all-knowing. We know we're not the all-knowing. We know we're so terribly flawed, and that's okay. Let's accept that we can learn and grow rather than deny the opportunity for ourselves in our relationship. Let's go toward understanding. Oh man, that boundary based on our hard past, I mean, I get it. It's tough. I'm trying to work through it. But you're right. When have we done some good with this? Let's do some good now. I want to respect your boundary. I want to understand you, because it's so easy. And I think everybody out there, we all have somebody in mind where we're like, I've been through the same crap with this person for so long, it's never going to change. Is it never going to change, or have we just been using the wrong tactics? Have we been coming in with loaded guns, or have we been coming in with, I don't know, hugs?
Well, that's why I feel like failure is such an important part of this journey, JJ, because I only see two outcomes when we fail. You either ignore it and hide from it, never want to experience it again, which usually makes things worse because you probably will. Probability, you will experience that again to some degree or another, that failure or the feeling of failure, or that disruption in communication, or that failure in communication. You're going to feel it again, or you can learn from failure, grow from failure, be open to it, and want to know why you failed and how you can grow from it. It's either growth or stagnation. I don't see any other way. It either destroys you or it propels you forward. And I spent so much of my life being disabled by it, by trying to run from it, ignore it, and not understand it. Oh, see, dogs agree with me. But when I really started getting a good relationship with failure, and when I started getting close to it, is when I started getting better every time, JJ. And when I started getting more open to the process, and to let down the ego and the self-defenses a little bit more, and was able to ask questions, not more about what the other person could do for the next time, but how I could maybe be better for the next time, or what I could maybe do to get more information so that I didn't blow up preemptively. And we have to look at failure as an opportunity rather than an obstacle.
Yeah, and failures happen at every level, don't they? I mean, just think about. I've had this experience with my kiddo where, let's say he just wasn't being careful with his, stick, a very long stick. Or we were at the pool table just this week, where he's learning how to hit the balls. It's a magnificent thing to watch. Man, I got a super amazing video of him hitting the ball into the pocket and just being super excited. He also swung and hit me accidentally with that cue stick going far back, from his body than he realized. And we've all been in that moment where we're like, let's say we got physically hit by somebody completely on accident, and we get jerked into a completely different state that quickly. It's shocking. And then, usually from the other side they say, oh sorry, but you're still in that shock moment where you're unable to shift. But I want to challenge everybody. Like, this is something that goes for any situation where you're hit off guard, you're hit by surprise. If somebody offers up an apology, try and turn around and say, it's okay, I forgive you. Because if they're saying sorry, they're extending a lot to you. And there's an opportunity to create a successful moment when you got slighted or got hurt or shocked in the moment that you weren't expecting. Let's try and, boom, smacked across the head. That's a great opportunity to connect right now. I didn't know this. You hit me literally physically in the face was going to be an opportunity for us to, embrace. But let's do this. And I'm saying this like meaning in communication. When somebody's yelling at you, what if you said, I see you're upset, or I'm sorry that this is going this way. How can I help you? Just completely taking that slap in the face and showing it grace immediately. Making a successful moment out of something that could easily been a failure. We can get along on the ride to causing hurts, or we can steer quickly in the other direction. If they shock you in the moment with something that hurt you, you could shock them right back by telling them you love them so dearly.
Brother, we just experienced this the other day or yesterday in the car, but it didn't go as full circle as you're hoping for with a good realization at the end. But I tried, But I picked the girls up from school, and Aubrey gets out before Naomi, so I took Aubrey, and we have like 45 minutes to kill. So there's a donut shop right around the corner. I'm gonna go get them some donuts to surprise Naomi. So we get them a donut. Naomi likes the pink one with the pink frosting. And Aubrey picked a pineapple one and ate hers in the back seat, and we went into Naomi's school and we're waiting for her to get out. And Aubrey said, Coley, there's a little bit of frosting that came off of Naomi's donut. Can I have it? And he says, yeah, sure. You can have a little bit of frosting that came off. Well, by the time that Naomi got into the car, JJ, all of the frosting was gone off of Naomi's donut. It's like one of those things where like you pick a piece off and then another piece falls, and then, well, I gotta eat that one now. And then she ate all the frosting off of the donut. And needless to say, JJ, my neurodivergent daughter was not happy with that when she found out.
What?
So the car ride to after school program that I was hoping was going to be filled with laughter and joy and, oh, Coley, you're the best, and we love donuts, was filled with, Aubrey's the worst. I can't believe she did that. And so, and when I asked Aubrey about it, of course she said, no, I didn't do that. And I said, Aubrey, don't lie to me, like honesty and ownership. That's what I always try to like instill in them, And she goes, okay, fine, I did, So I said, okay, well, you admitted to it, kinda, So when they do that, I let them in on the punishment. We ask them if they're honest about it. We say, what do you think the consequence should be? And we'll work with them. We'll compromise. We don't just give it to them, because sometimes it's just been like, nah, I don't get candy for a day. It's like, no, you're gonna have to do something a little bit more, So it was like, we're having a sleepover this weekend. I said, I'll get donuts for the sleepover, and Aubrey gets one less than everybody else, But Naomi like could not let it go. She was like thinking of every way she was going to punish Aubrey for the next week, for the rest of their lives, really. Well, that doll that I gave you last week, I want it back. You can't play with it anymore. And we had to, no, Naomi, once you give something to somebody, you can't take it back. That's not right. You can't, and you're not the parent. You don't give the consequences. I just told her how this was going to work. She lost something. Let's move on, but well, then you can't do this. Well, then she shouldn't get this. Well, then when we go out to eat next, she doesn't get dessert and I should, she's just thinking of every which way to punish her little sister for doing that. And I said, Naomi, like, stop. You gotta let go of this. You're going to carry this in your heart for the rest of the day, and you're going to put yourself in a terrible mood, and you guys are going to be fighting, and then you're going to end up having a consequence because you're fighting with your sister all the time. I said, not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and hoping that they die. And she goes, you say that all the time. So I tried every which way to get her to kind of drop it. And eventually she did, but yeah, learning to drop the animosity and the resentment and flip it in a surprising way that has love and gratitude is the answer, but it's not always easy to do, brother.
Yeah.
Especially when someone eats all your frosting.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point there that I think I'm going to word it similarly, but hopefully kind of like flesh it out a little bit too. Is that kids are really good at derailing the point and arguing the point to the point where you're now arguing because you are being challenged, or you being, your buttons are being pushed, and those derailments are what usually get us parents in trouble with the kids. So I appreciate the idea of setting that expectation and sticking to it. Just yesterday, actually, Cohen's been loving riding his bike, man. I mean, it's awesome. He just has a blast. And yesterday morning, we couldn't get the bike to school because I told him, I said, well, I got to teach as well, and I don't know where we're going to put your bike because I haven't seen a bike rack at the school. So I told him, I said, I just don't want to bring the bike, not knowing where we're going to be able to put it for the first couple hours of school. And he got so angry and stomped his feet and says, there's a bike rack there. Well, I think he was just trying to argue his point, because when we got to the school, I told him, I said, yeah, when we get to the school, you can show me where the bike rack is. We get to the school and he says, there might be one. There might be one somewhere. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I think you were just trying to get your way there. And then when we got home, I took his bike to aftercare and picked him up, and then he rode it home. And the elevator in our apartment complex was closing because somebody was in it, and he rode his bike and he purposefully drove it into the elevator doors. And I said, hey, buddy, that's not okay. You're purposefully possibly causing damage to property that's not your own. That's not a safe choice. I'm going to have you sit out for a little bit before you start playing with your friend. And he was so upset, and he started arguing this direction and this direction. And I said, buddy, I'm not going to go there. You know this is what I've said is the consequence. We're sticking to it. So I want you to do that. So he gets upstairs and he starts wanting to play with stuff. I said, you got to sit in the chair. I don't like timeouts, buddy. I gotta be honest. I hate timeouts. I think they're ineffective for my brilliant kid, and I appreciate the fact that he makes me work harder to do what's right by him in terms of when his moments call for consequence. But that was what I ended up doing yesterday because I acted quickly and I didn't want to lose sight of what I told him. I said, this is the consequence. It was like a 5-minute sit out. It wasn't a big deal, but to him it mattered. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, again, back to the idea of, setting expectations, not letting it get derailed, keeping a focus so everybody can hopefully get back to that focus when they start to get emotional and charged and they want to start fighting everything. And they're like, well, you clip your toenails weird. It's like, well, where did that come from? That was unexpected. Let's go there now. No, let's stick to the point. Let's get through this together. And then we come out on the other side having understood a little bit more, rather than going, what the hell took place there? I don't get this. So I appreciate what you said, because I think that aligns with what I believe in and don't always practice. But when I practice that, my kiddo is like, he's thankful at the end. We went, and after that 5 minutes, we talked about what it is. Why was that consequence there? Why did we have that consequence? Why did we stick with that? Those unsafe choices. So now we had a very simple timeline that didn't just go all over the place, where now we're talking about the toenail clippings and, oh my gosh, there's a dust bunny in the corner. I asked you to clean that up the other day. Instead of me trying to poke at this person and just trying to undermine who they are because I'm feeling slighted, I'm going to stick to the point because I care about you, because we need to get through this moment because we are a team.
Yeah, and a lot of times we use those opportunities of when we're mad at somebody to bring up everything that we're mad at them about. We let these little things go, and then we feel all self-righteous of, well, I picked my battles, I didn't bring it up, and then when we get into a fight, you got a laundry list of like all of these things that you let go, but you're not really letting go. You're just waiting for this moment to throw into the face, you know. And we were talking about earlier too, like about the whole kind of you know, accountability and gratitude piece to all this and the post discussion. And I think that like a big miss that we do too is that we don't have those conversations with ourselves before we go into these conversations, you know. And I think that we have to have that, you know. I think that you got to like get in touch with yourself and be like, shit, you know, I dropped the ball, you know, but without shooting on yourself, you know. I dropped the ball, but that's okay. How am I going to make up for it now with this conversation, you know? And that's okay. You're still good, and you want to say these things, and you did do this, and I'm grateful that you did express this. And I think that we need to have those conversations with ourselves, not just our partners or our kids after the fact, because it helps defuse us. It helps give us a little bit of forgiveness and grace, which is just as important, right? You know, I mean, especially with our kids, like, you know, there was a recollection I'm thinking of last week where, again, our house is in just turmoil, you know. And every day that we try to go out the door, JJ, it's like, where are the keys? Where's the wallet? Where is the thing? Because like our key bowl isn't there, and the hook where we put the keys, and the shoe bench, and everything is moved and scattered and shoved into the garage, you know, like without any thought to it, because the guy just showed up and said, we're gonna get to work. And we were like, oh, okay, it's happening now. Okay, everything goes into the corner. And now we're like 2 weeks into this, and we're like, where is everything, you know? So like every day we're constantly like looking for things, you know, in the midst of trying to get everybody ready and fed, you know. And I just had a blow up moment the other day, JJ. I'll be honest. The stress of it just overwhelmed me. And I was just like in a little pouty mood, just stomping around the house, you know, like, I can't find anything. I wasn't yelling at anybody. I was just expelling, you know. I was just letting it all out, brother. And I was, I can't find any socks. I have no clean socks, and you know. And my wife came in and said, you got to calm down. You're scaring the kids. And that's like that'll diffuse me right away, where I just sink into all this guilt and shame. Oh, fuck, I scared the kids. Oh, God. You know, it's like, I just feel so bad about that. And so, you know, when they went to school, and my wife said, you know, I think you really got to talk to the kids about that and apologize, and, you know, and just say what was going on with you. You know, so, oh, God, you know, I want it, the ego gets up. Well, I didn't do that. You know, I want to, like, there's the phone again. Every time we press record, JJ, telemarketers call. So, you know, and so the next day I went to go talk to the kids about it. I was dropping them off at school, and I said, hey, I just wanted to apologize for yesterday morning. You know, Coley kind of lost it, and I was feeling very frustrated, and Mama said that she talked to you and that you guys were a little scared, and I just wanted to say sorry, and it wasn't about you, it was about me and what I was going through, and yada yada yada. And both the kids looked at me and said, you got mad yesterday? Huh? I don't remember that. You know, so like, we got to have a little bit of forgiveness and grace with ourselves during this process. Not everything is as end of the world as we make it sometimes, you know. And sometimes we have to just be able to add a little bit of humor and say, shucks, you know, I really goofed up there, you know, and I'm sorry, and this is what I would like it to look like moving forward from here. And then we just chip away at that a little bit at a time, man. You know, we're never going to have a perfect sculpture, but I think that we will get a better idea of what the picture looks like every time that we do this.
I think we really need to unpack this sometime here too, is about bringing humor into a situation of conflict, and when is the right and when is the wrong time to use.
Save your marriage or blow it up.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You know, I was having a conversation with myself while you were saying all this, because it brings back so much. And I apologize if it's not completely on point to what you were saying, but it probably does. It probably does have some pertinence here. But when I was married and when we were in our tough place, resentment was something that was evident through our interactions. And my habit was to save a lot of chores and, like kind of the things that take a little bit more time, like errands for the weekend. And my wife at the time and I, we were tense and we were having an argument. Who knows what it was even about, honestly. But I was taking kiddo and we were going to go and do something. And she said, and I might have shared this before on the podcast. She said, well, why don't you go shopping? Which was a statement of resentment. And there was a lot behind that. And I remember just like, screw this. I'm just angry now, just upset that she would go there. And what I want to preface this with is, I'm not giving anybody a pass, but I certainly can't allow myself a pass in these situations because I'm the person who's in control of my emotions and what I'm capable of doing when I am triggered or I'm attacked or whatever. But I remember in that moment thinking that feeling and being angry and, just deciding to stick with that anger. Time goes on and, the relationship didn't work out. The marriage, everything happened the way it did. But I look at that situation now and I want to encourage everybody listening to really open your mind to yourself more when it comes to these past situations that are still on your mind because for whatever reason they stuck out and they were hard in the moment and you're still trying to figure things out. Maybe you won't ever figure out the other side, but that's the nice gift that you have is you have the opportunity to try and figure yourself out. So what does that look like? Now I look back at that and I say, I can ask myself some questions that may be good questions to ask, or they may not be good questions to ask. One question I ask myself is, what could I have done over the course of our time as a couple together for her to not be able to voice in a kind and caring way, hey, I would like it if on the weekends you didn't spend time, going and running errands because of XYZ, whatever. I am pointing this out now because there was failure of communication for a long time that I was a contributor to and was so blind to the fact that she instead chose resentment over feeling safe to talk about those things. So I didn't have a conversation with myself. I decided to have a conversation against her in my head to get to that point. I do truly believe that. Why do I believe that? Because it occurred. Because there was enough that took place leading up to that point for her to say that out of resentment.
Brother, I do this too, man. Sometimes we'll get into an argument and then in those break moments, instead of the gratitude and forgiveness piece, I'm sitting there arguing with her in these hypothetical arguments. Well, if I say this, I know she'll say this, and then if she says that, then I'm going to say this, but then I know she'll say this, and then I create this narrative for by the time that we go into an argument, I've just like fueled this hypothetical reality that isn't even happening, and that's a dangerous place to be because, sometimes you can bring certain, well, you're this way. And I never said that. I never did that. It's like, well, shoot, it's from this persona that I've created about you in my head, So I think, again, like you said, we really have to kind of have those conversations with ourselves, in a healthier way rather than just stagnated in the bad habitual communication habits that we do with our partner. We have to kind of either stop the self-talk or change it in a way that is going to lead us to a more productive conversation.
Yeah, and one of the simple ways to get there, I believe, is first off, we know that we're flawed individuals. And then ask yourself the question, am I the one that has it all figured out and everybody else is just kind of clueless? As soon as I ask myself that question, knowing I'm a flawed individual, I can realize I am not giving this person enough of the benefit of the doubt, which is actually kind of not really where you should be at. The idea is I don't want to just leave it at that, giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. I want to understand that person. I want to be curious and ask the question. Because when you're in a relationship with somebody, you said, I am with you to the end. And then all of a sudden you're telling a story about how you are always right in this situation. And they're just crazy, or they're just whatever. You're losing that person. You're giving yourself the right to lose that person, or you're giving yourself the reasons actually as to why that person is just not, I don't know, living up to the standard that apparently you have. And then you're denying, of course, them the right to see you for who you are, which is somebody who's trying to figure this crap out too.
Yeah, well said. We just need to give ourselves and everyone around us a little bit more grace here, because this is a process. So yeah, man, thanks for sharing all those insights today.
Yeah,
hope our listeners got something out of it. I definitely feel better fleshing it out with you, at least. So, but at the tail end of this, I think that my wife and I ended on a great note in our post conversations, and reestablishing, some of the pitfalls that we noticed going into that argument, and things that we would like, see worked on for the next time in ourselves. So I think it was a very productive conversation, as much as it maybe sucked it in the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the stuff that we talk about. And, I never feel that like it's over. I always feel like we have the tools to get through this. We just need to be patient and forgive each other and have some grace. So like I said, we get better every time.
Let me share you with one other thing that I think is valuable, and that is maybe try to understand what it is about the other person when it comes to conflict. If they say, I'm a person who just needs to hash it out in the moment. Okay, well, hash it out in the moment, person. What does that other person want to do in those moments? Because if they're like, that makes me uncomfortable, I need time to reflect and understand what it is that the situation is calling for, then you're not really understanding their needs. So that's a big piece of it. Like, okay, yeah, that might work for you with this relationship, but what about this relationship? Let's get to an understanding. Because I'll tell you, all the experts will say a pause to reflect is one of the most valuable things you can do to help a successful relationship remain successful. Anyways.
Well, thank you, JJ. Thank you, listeners. And guys, if you want to stay in tune to our fitness journey, man, check out the ADHDads.com, because we got content we're posting every day. Coach Ray King, who's a former guest on the show, he's been helping us out, getting us into shape, creating some good, healthy habits. I've been getting my kids involved. They've been joining me on workouts. They're hilarious with their commentary. So Naomi is a little Nazi with her fitness coaching. My goodness. She's worse than Coach Ray. But if you guys want to see that content, check out the website and join us, man. Contact Coach Ray, get a program, and let's get fit together. We'll share photos and go on this journey together. I'd like to hear where you're at with it, and where you struggle with it, and what you're doing to set yourself up for success. So check that out, the ADHDads.com. Check out Coach Ray King, and tune in next time, man, because I always love hearing that you're hearing us. So until next time, I'm your host, CJ.
I'm JJ.
And this is the ADHDads.